My name is Jean-Philippe Boulanger. I'm a climatologist. I'm a scientist in data and climate sciences. And I created in 2011 a company called Ecoclimasol, which is dedicated to the management of climate risk. Basically, our objective from the start of the company was to develop specific platforms are sensitive to climate risk, and therefore we developed solutions for insurance companies, for the agriculture sector, as well as to the wine sector. So Climavista Wine is one of our platforms, which is specially designed for viticultures, for the wine production. And what we wanted to do with Climavista Wine is to combine science knowledge related to climate forecast, to the grape physiology and phenology, as well as to an optimization of the use of sensors in order to help the producers in the harvest time of the different grapes and plots they have in their fields. So basically, what we did is to work a lot on the use of forecast, usual forecast, atmospheric forecast, as well as with artificial intelligence methods, in order to combine both and provide an optimized local and customized forecast for the viticulture. The sensors we use in the field are two kinds. One is weather station, where we can receive through Sigfox, we receive the data in real time. The interest is to have different sensors for both temperature, humidity, pressure, precipitation, as well as solar radiation and wind. And the other kind of sensors are much smaller. There are sensors with temperature, and we are now working on sensors with temperature and humidity. These sensors, they are located inside the vine. The objective is to really follow and to monitor the temperature at the level of the grapes, in order to know the maturity development of the grapes. And this information, what we do is that we install at least what we advise is to install around one sensor every 2 to 1 hectare. To have a general overview of the production, and in certain places where the production is dedicated to a very high level and wine, we consider that it's useful to have more sensors, like 10 sensors in 1 hectare. What we do with this information is then to represent with models, complex models, the relationship between the sensors, topography, the slope, the orientation, and to reproduce an interpolated map of the temperature inside the fields. With this information, we are able to compute indicators which allow to know the maturity of the grapes in the different areas of the fields. And with that, we are able to identify specific zones inside the field, which helps the producers to harvest differently certain regions and certain areas inside the fields. With that, they can dedicate the best grapes directly to the highest wine they want to produce, and the other ones to different categories of wines they also produce. The risk factors are related mainly to temperature and humidity. With temperature, we are able to follow and monitor precisely the development of the grapes. we are also able to anticipate and forecast frosts inside the fields. So it's something very important for most of the producers. And in the new version of sensors that we will install, the use of humidity is very useful for health, for diseases. So we can forecast diseases inside the fields. And so we decided to use all these sensors in relation with Sigfox, because it was very useful for us to and very easy to implement this kind of technology for the implementation here in Argentina. Yeah, to introduce this topic, actually I worked during 20 years in public research in France, and I dedicated 10 years on climate change. So this is a topic that I analyzed a lot, especially for South America, as I participated to the IPCC AR5 analysis of climate change. And what we saw in Argentina is the major risk is combining both the increase of temperature and the decrease in precipitation in the Andes, in a region where we have a lot of production of wine production. So considering this risk and talking with different vineyards, what they are doing, they have two strategies. One is to go upward in the mountain in order to reduce the effect of temperature, but most of the time they are confronting to a water deficit in this area. It's very difficult to access to water. So another strategy they are developing is to move southward in regions which now are not very adapted to wine production, but little by little, and due to the increase of temperature in the region, these regions will be much more favorable for such a production. What is interesting is that in wine productions, most of the vineyards are very conscious about climate change impacts. Because the investments they are doing are investments, long-term investments, and so they are very sensitive to these aspects. And so in Argentina, we can see that they are sensitive to the issue, to this challenge, and also in Europe, where we also commercialize our solution, Climavista Wine. We can see the same kind of topic, especially for water stress, which is a big issue in the south of France. The main challenge is to demonstrate the benefits they will have incorporating such technologies. The good thing in working in the wine production sector is that most of the vineyards are already very interested in incorporating technology. Of course, what they want is to be sure that the technology will help them in differentiating their products, in improving the final products, which is a bottle of wine, and the quality of the wine. So when we go there, we try always to come with with different success stories, and with such success stories they can compare with their own challenges, and it's much easier for them to at least start with our solutions. On a general aspect, what we do is to go in a progressive way, in a sense that we know that incorporating technology is very often challenged. So what our offer is incremental. The vineyard can start with a small, with an initial product where they will be able to see the impact of climate, to improve the forecast, to follow and monitor with satellite data the state of the vineyards. We have models for the phenological cycle. So all this information is very useful for them to have a starting point. And then when they start having more confidence in the incorporation of technology, it's much easier to show them what they can do with IoT, with different kind of sensors, how they can improve the quality of the grapes, and how they can select the optimal grapes according to the wines they want to produce. I think it's incremental, and it will go fast. Sincerely, I presented different times talks about the digital revolution in agriculture and viticulture, and I believe that IoT is a big revolution for these sectors, because we will very soon be able to monitor all the aspects of the crops for some agricultural activities, and also of the wine, of the vid, for the wine production. So I believe that all these IoT and sensors will allow to improve considerably the quality and of the production. It was a very interesting opportunity for us, because Sigfox, with WND in Argentina, is actually implementing a big network of antennas. Considering that Argentina is a huge country, it's a huge effort. But when we discussed with a representative of Sigfox here in Argentina and explained what we wanted to do with sensors, they accompanied us in installing more antennas close to the vineyards we wanted to monitor. And so thanks to this proximity and this strategy, we were able to have very, very good coverage of the different vineyards we are now monitoring. So I think it was a very interesting win-win relationship between Sigfox and Ecoclimasol. And with this confidence now that we have in the use of this technology, we clearly are investing more in implementing more sensors and to promote this kind of technology all over Argentina. What happened is that after 20 years of public research on climate, and especially on climate change, I also coordinated 2 European projects on climate change, impact, and adaptation in South America. I had a personal motivation in promoting more applied research. So I decided to create Ecoclimasol with this objective, to bring research knowledge to applied sectors, to sectors very sensitive to climate, and to help them being more conscious about the challenges related to climate change. And the first step is very often to start with incorporating present climate in present decision. And very often, a lot of places where one considers that it's obvious, it was not the case, and many sectors are not really taking into account climate in their decision-making processes. So that was my main motivation when I started with Ecoclimasol, and so far we were very successful, because both in the insurance sector as well as in agriculture or viticulture, we have many clients now using our solutions, incorporating climate in their decision-making process, and therefore it's much easier now to start talking about much longer climate viability and including climate change projections. We are all the time incorporating new technologies and new knowledge. A huge part of the company is in research and development. We invest a lot in that. So during the last year, we started to investigate the potential of artificial intelligence, and we are far from having finalized this investigation, because we see that it's a huge revolution also in statistical areas. So we are investing a lot in knowing better that. At the same time, we develop new models for diseases, models for hydrological balance, for the culture growth and phenological cycle. And what we see and foresee is a very, very strong incorporation of real-time data based on IoT, based on Sigfox communication, to have all this incorporation of this real-time data with all the models we are developing and calibrating. And we consider that this optimal mix of data and models will allow a very, very significant improvement in the quality of the information that producers will have in the near future. Thank you, Sigfox, and we are Ecoclimasol, a specialist in climate risk management solutions.